Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Diah Ramadhani with student number 23412060 from class AKT 23A. In this video, I will explain the material regarding factory overhead costs in the cost accounting course. Definition of factory overhead costs (BOP). Factory overhead costs are a type of expense that is not directly related to the production process of goods or services. Generally, these costs are owned by each company and come from the production support division in the company. Examples of factory overhead costs include costs for additional facilities in the production process, insurance costs, taxes, and many more. Although not directly related to production, the business can still operate, one of which is with these costs. Therefore, BOP must still be budgeted by each company. Overhead costs grouping. Every company or factory certainly has a business budget plan. Preparing a cost budget is easier and more automatic using the RAB application. To facilitate the process, one way is to group overhead costs. Overhead costs are grouped into three different parts with various elements that make them up. The following are the elements of factory overhead costs in each group. 1. According to its nature. Overhead costs in a factory or company, according to their nature, are divided into three different elements, namely, cost of supporting or auxiliary materials. This means that this material is not a result of production or materials that are worth less than the total price of the product. Costs for indirect labor, namely labor whose nominal wages cannot be calculated directly from production results. Maintenance/maintenance costs, such as the cost of repairing production equipment, repairing vehicles, or the cost of purchasing spare parts. 2. According to behavior due to changes in output/production volume. In this group there are also three elements in it, including fixed BOP, a type of BOP that is not affected by the volume of output/production. Examples include legal consultant fees, rent, insurance, and depreciation of fixed assets. Variable BOP, namely the type of cost that also changes according to changes in the amount of production. This amount of production certainly also affects the quantity of stock supply in the stock application and warehouse application. Changes in the amount of production from an example of variable overhead costs are the marketing budget. Semi-variable BOP, costs that also change but are not proportional to changes in output volume. For example, the cost of purchasing printer ink. 3. According to the department in the company. For this third group there are only two elements in it, namely direct department BOP, namely costs owned by a department and the benefits are only felt by that department. Indirect department BOP, namely costs that benefit the department and other departments. Benefits of factory overhead costs BOP. Although factory overhead costs will differ in each business sector, they have broadly the same benefits. Here are some of the benefits you can get. 1. Provides detailed cost allocation information. Through BOP, you can obtain detailed information regarding the cost allocation incurred by the company. That way, you can plan your budget more precisely, while reducing or eliminating excessive spending. 2. Manage and monitor expenditures. With this BOP, it allows companies to manage and monitor company expenditures as a whole. From there, it will be easier for you to identify if there are costs that are too large and make adjustments. You can also manage expenses in a more organized and planned manner, especially when using online accounting software. 3. Facilitates product pricing. BOP has quite an influence on determining the price of a product. Although not directly related to production, the existence of BOP must still be considered. You will experience losses when BOP is still issued, but not included in the calculation of product prices. Therefore, one of the benefits of BOP is more precise product pricing. How to calculate factory overhead costs BOP. To be able to apply BOP in your business, it is not enough to just understand the meaning, components, and benefits. Another thing that is no less important to understand is how to calculate factory overhead costs. Here are the calculation methods. 1. Separating the budget for each division. The first way to calculate BOP is to separate the budget from each division or department in the company. In its application, you must collect information related to the estimated costs of each division, to then analyze the submission of their respective overhead costs. 2. Making a total BOP estimate. The second way is to collect all BOP from each division in the company to then be analyzed at once. That way you can determine the budget for the total BOP as a whole. Generally, this authority lies with the finance department or the owner of the company. 3. Calculating the BOP percentage. The third or last way to calculate is to find the percentage of BOP needs in each division and divide it according to its needs. When compared to the two previous calculation methods, this last method is the most commonly used today. The reason is because it is simpler and faster. You only need the total BOP divided by the total production cost and multiplied by 100%. From that percentage, it is then divided again for each division according to its needs. Generally, the marketing division gets the largest BOP budget. This is because their obligation to expand product marketing requires a fairly large budget. Of factory overhead costs BOP. After understanding how to calculate it, you also need to know what the important functions of calculating BOP are for the company. What are the functions? Here is a brief review. Reference budget estimates for each division. This is to facilitate the company's financial analysis and make adjustments to the budget plan. Managing expenses outside of production. The company's cash flow must be constantly monitored. In addition to minimizing errors, it also avoids fraud. BOP is a cost that is prone to misuse, therefore it must be managed properly by the authorities. Increase the effectiveness and efficiency of BOP use. By calculating BOP, the finance division will find it easier to determine priority BOP. Become the basis for determining future business strategies. This can happen when there are product research activities or market analysis. The costs for these activities certainly come from BOP. That way, indirectly BOP can also be used as the basis for future business strategies. So even though it is not directly related to the production process, it does not mean that BOP is not as important as other types of costs. Because of this cost, there are many important functions and benefits that you can get. Understand and apply BOP in your business to ensure its smooth running. As explained above, factory overhead costs are factory expenses that are not directly related to the production process. However, it does not mean that because it is not directly related, it is not included in the calculation of the selling price of the product. In fact, with the existence of BOP, you can determine the most appropriate price for the product so that you do not experience losses. This is because there is a fixed BOP that is still issued regardless of the volume of output or production. If this cost is not included in the calculation of the selling price, of course in the end you will experience losses. That's all the material from me. I hope what I have conveyed can be useful. I apologize if there are any wrong words. Thank you. Wassalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.